My name is Maya, and at 28 years old, I thought I had everything figured out. I had been married to James for 5 years, working as a physical therapist at a respected clinic, and had recently started fertility treatments to start the family we had been planning since our wedding day. My sister Olivia lived 20 minutes away, close enough for our weekly sister brunches, but far enough that we maintained our separate lives. At least, that's what I thought. That Tuesday, I came home unexpectedly when my last patient canceled. The moment I opened our front door, I knew something was wrong. The house had that peculiar stillness that spoke of secrets, like the air itself was holding its breath. "Hello," I called out, dropping my keys on the entryway table. No answer. I heard it then, a soft, rhythmic sound coming from the kitchen. Someone was crying. Following the sound, I walked down the hallway, my footsteps eerily loud against the hardwood floor. When I turned the corner into our open kitchen, my heart stuttered. Olivia sat at my kitchen island, her shoulders shaking as she sobbed into her hands. What froze me in place wasn't finding my sister crying in my kitchen when she should have been at work, it was the blood. Smeared across her fingers, dotting the white marble countertop, staining the sleeve of her pale blue blouse. "Liv," my voice came out as a whisper. "Oh my God, are you hurt? What happened?" She jerked upright, her mascara-streaked face a mask of shock and something else. Guilt, fear, I couldn't place it. "Maya, you're supposed to be at work." The panic in her voice was unmistakable as she frantically tried to wipe the blood from her hands with a paper towel. I rushed forward, grabbing her wrists to examine her for injuries. "Where are you bleeding? Do we need to go to the hospital?" "I'm not hurt," she said, pulling away from me. "It's not what you think." My eyes darted around the kitchen, searching for answers. That's when I noticed more blood, a small trail leading from the kitchen toward our master bedroom. My stomach tightened. "Whose blood is this, Olivia? What's going on?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I can explain everything, please don't freak out." Before she could continue, I was already following the blood trail, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The drops led directly to the bathroom connected to the bedroom I shared with James. Inside, the scene made no sense at first. Blood-spotted tissues filled the wastebasket. A bloody washcloth lay crumpled by the sink. On the counter sat an open first aid kit, antiseptic wipes scattered around it. "He didn't want you to worry." Olivia's voice came from behind me. "It was a small accident." "Who had an accident? James, where is he?" I spun around, confusion giving way to concern. "He cut himself pretty badly. I was helping him clean up when he realized he might need stitches. He drove himself to urgent care about 20 minutes ago." Relief washed over me, followed immediately by suspicion. "Why were you here in the middle of a workday? Why didn't either of you call me? I'm a healthcare professional." Olivia's eyes darted around nervously. "I had the day off. I was dropping off that book you wanted to borrow." I knew she was lying. My sister had a tell when she wasn't being truthful. She couldn't maintain eye contact and always touched her left earlobe. She was doing both now. "What book?" I challenged. "That gardening one you mentioned, about native plants." "I never asked for a gardening book, Liv." Her face crumpled. "Maya, please." But something else had caught my attention. On the floor, partially hidden beneath the bathroom cabinet, was a man's watch, James's watch. The one I'd given him for our anniversary 3 months ago, with our initials engraved on the back. Next to it lay a woman's earring that I recognized as Olivia's. If you've ever had that moment where your entire world shifts on its axis, where everything you thought you knew suddenly reveals itself as a lie, then you know the sickening vertigo I felt standing in that bathroom. I picked up the watch and earring, holding them out like evidence at a trial. "Tell me the truth, right now." Olivia started crying again, those silent tears that slip down your face when you know you've done something unforgivable. "It wasn't supposed to happen. We never meant to hurt you." The words hit me like physical blows. My sister, my husband, the 2 people I trusted most in the world. "How long?" I managed to ask, my voice sounding strange and distant to my ears. "Maya, maybe we should wait for James too." "How long?" I hadn't meant to shout, but the words tore from my throat. 8 months, she whispered. 8 months, while I was working overtime to save for fertility treatments. While James was working late at the architecture firm. while Olivia was supposedly dating that guy from her yoga class. 8 months of Sunday family dinners where they sat across from each other at my table, passing dishes and making small talk while exchanging secret glances I was too blind to see. I felt suddenly lightheaded, gripping the bathroom counter to steady myself. "The blood?" I asked, needing to understand everything. He was shaving. I distracted him, and he cut himself pretty badly on the jaw. We tried to clean it up, but we realized it might need stitches. The mundane explanation for the blood seemed absurdly insignificant compared to the betrayal it had inadvertently revealed. My sister had been in my bathroom with my husband in the middle of a Tuesday when they both should have been at work. "Get out," I said quietly. "Maya, please, we need to talk about this." "Get out of my house." This time I was screaming. The rage finally broke through the shock. Olivia backed away, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, we never wanted." "Don't you dare tell me what you want. You wanted my husband and you took him, my sister." The words tasted bitter in my mouth. "Go." She hesitated at the bathroom door. "James will be back soon. You shouldn't be alone when." "I'm calling an Uber and going to a hotel. I can't be here when he returns." The clinical calmness in my voice surprised even me. "And Olivia, don't call me, don't text me. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a sister anymore." The hurt in her eyes gave me a flash of vicious satisfaction. Good, let her hurt. It was nothing compared to the gaping wound she'd carved into my life. After Olivia left, I moved through the house in a daze, packing a bag with mechanical efficiency. Clothes, toiletries, a phone charger, and a laptop. The essentials for a life suddenly uprooted. I kept waiting for the breakdown, for the tears that should come with such a monumental betrayal, but I felt oddly numb, operating on autopilot. As I waited for my Uber on the front porch, I noticed one of Olivia's earrings clutched in my hand, the mate to the one I'd found in the bathroom. I must have grabbed it without thinking. The small silver moon dangled from my fingers, catching the afternoon light. I'd been with her when she bought these at a street festival last summer. "Lunar sisters," she'd called us, giving me the matching sun earrings. The memory cracked something inside me. If you've ever trusted someone completely, sharing your deepest fears and greatest hopes with them, only to discover they've been betraying you all along, you know the particular agony I felt sitting on that porch. It's a special kind of heartbreak when the people who should love you the most are the ones who hurt you beyond measure. Comment below if you've ever experienced betrayal from someone you never thought capable of it. My Uber arrived, and a middle-aged woman took one look at my face and mercifully remained silent for the entire drive to the hotel. I checked into the first available room, a sterile space with generic artwork and a view of the parking lot. There, sitting on the edge of a bed that wasn't mine, reality finally hit me with full force. My marriage was over. My relationship with my only sibling was destroyed. The future I'd planned, the family we'd been trying to create, all was shattered in the space of an afternoon. I allowed myself exactly 1 hour of uncontrolled sobbing. Then I washed my face, ordered room service I couldn't taste, and called my boss to request emergency personal leave. By morning, I would need a plan, but for tonight, survival was enough. The next day brought the inevitable. 27 missed calls from James, 15 from Olivia, dozens of text messages I couldn't bring myself to read. Instead, I called the one person who had never betrayed me, my college roommate Vanessa, who lived 3 hours away in Nashville. "I'm coming," she said immediately after I choked out what had happened. "Pack your stuff. You're staying with me for a while." By noon, Vanessa had arrived at the hotel, helped me check out, and was driving us toward her apartment in Nashville. I sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window as familiar Georgia landscapes gave way to Tennessee hills. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked gently. "Not really," I said, then found myself talking anyway. 8 months, Van. Almost our entire last year of marriage has been a lie, and with Olivia, of all people, my sister. "I could kill them both," Vanessa said, her knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. "Seriously, I know a guy who knows a guy." The absurdity of her offer made me laugh, a strangled sound that quickly turned to tears. "The worst part is I should have seen it," I continued after regaining my composure. "All those times James was working late on the Sullivan project. On the weekends, Olivia suddenly couldn't make our brunches because of yoga retreats. They weren't even being careful. You didn't see it because you trusted them, Vanessa said firmly. That's on them, not you. I keep thinking about last Christmas when we were all at my parents' house. Remember, I called you because James and I had that big fight about having kids. He kept saying he wasn't sure he was ready yet, even though we'd been planning it for years. Vanessa nodded, her eyes on the road. I bet he was already sleeping with Olivia then, standing in my parents' kitchen, arguing about our future children while carrying on with my sister down the hall. Have you told your parents yet? I shook my head. They've always adored James, and Olivia is their baby, the perfect daughter who can do no wrong. They'll probably find a way to blame me somehow. That's not true, Vanessa protested, but we both knew it wasn't entirely false. My parents had always held Olivia and me to different standards. Where I was expected to be responsible and practical, Olivia was permitted her spontaneous nature, her mistakes easily forgiven as part of her free spirit. They won't be able to ignore this, Vanessa continued. Even your parents have limits. I wasn't so sure, but I was too exhausted to argue. Instead, I closed my eyes and tried to imagine a future beyond the crushing present. The next 2 weeks at Vanessa's apartment became my sanctuary and detox program. During the day, I worked remotely, grateful for the distraction. Evenings were spent processing what had happened, sometimes talking with Vanessa, sometimes journaling, and often staring blankly at whatever show she'd put on TV. James continued calling, his messages growing increasingly desperate. I finally texted him back once, a single message. I will contact you when I am ready to discuss divorce proceedings. His reply came instantly. Please don't make any decisions yet. I love you. It was a mistake. I laughed bitterly at the screen. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store. A mistake is accidentally using salt instead of sugar in a recipe. Having an 8-month affair with your wife's sister is a deliberate series of choices made day after day after day. Olivia was more persistent. Her messages ranged from tearful apologies to defensive justifications. We never planned this. Sometimes feelings just happen. You were so focused on work and the fertility treatments, you weren't even seeing how unhappy James was. That last one sent me into such a rage that Vanessa had to hide my phone to prevent me from saying things I might regret, though regret seemed impossible given the circumstances. My parents called on day 10 of my self-imposed exile. Olivia had finally confessed everything, spinning a narrative that cast her as the remorseful sinner and James as the misunderstood husband. They wanted to help us work through this as a family. There is no working through this, I told my mother flatly, and right now, I'm not sure what family means anymore. Maya, my mother sighed, her disappointment evident even through the phone. Olivia made a terrible mistake, but she's your sister. Blood is thicker than water. We need to find forgiveness. Interesting how you always ask me to be the bigger person when Olivia messes up, I replied. But I've never heard you tell her to respect my boundaries or to consider my feelings. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is expecting me to forgive the unforgivable, because we share DNA. After hanging up, I felt simultaneously liberated and bereft. Standing up to my mother was long overdue, but it widened the chasm between my old life and whatever came next. 3 weeks after discovering the affair, I finally agreed to meet James, not at our house, but at a neutral coffee shop halfway between Nashville and Atlanta. I arrived early, claiming a corner table that offered some privacy while still being in public view. When he walked in, I was struck by how terrible he looked, unshaven with dark circles under his eyes, thinner than I remembered. Good, I thought viciously, he should suffer. Maya, he breathed my name like a prayer as he sat down across from me. Thank you for meeting me. I said nothing, stared at the man I had loved for 7 years, and wondered how he could now seem like a stranger. I know nothing I say can fix this, he began, his hands fidgeting with a napkin. But I need you to know how deeply sorry I am. What happened with Olivia was. If you call it a mistake, I'm walking out right now, I interrupted coldly. He swallowed hard. It was a betrayal. The worst thing I've ever done. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know it wasn't about not loving you. It was about my weakness, my failures. Why her? The question had been haunting me. Out of everyone in the world, why is it my sister? James looked down at his hands. It wasn't planned. Last summer, when you were at that conference in Phoenix, Olivia stopped by to water the plants. We started talking about how distant you'd been since the fertility treatments began. One thing led to another. He trailed off miserably. So this is my fault, because I was focused on creating the family we both said we wanted. No, that's not what I meant. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I felt like you were so focused on becoming a mother that you stopped seeing me as a husband. And Olivia was there, listening, understanding. Understanding, I repeated flatly. My sister understood you so well that she needed to sleep with you to show her empathy. Maya, please. Were you ever going to tell me? Or were you going to keep lying while we tried to have a baby? His silence was an answer enough. I filed the divorce papers yesterday, I said, pulling an envelope from my bag and sliding it across the table. My lawyer will contact yours. I don't want the house, too many memories. My fair share of our assets and a clean break. James looked stricken. Can't we at least try counseling? People overcome affairs all the time. This wasn't an affair, James. You slept with my sister. You brought her into our home, into our bed. You let me continue fertility treatments while sleeping with someone else. My voice remained steady, though inside I was screaming. There's no coming back from that level of betrayal. As I stood to leave, James grabbed my wrist. I do love you, Maya. I never stopped. Please believe that. I gently removed his hand. The problem is, I don't believe anything you say anymore. Goodbye, James. Walking out of that coffee shop felt like emerging from underwater, painful and gasping, but finally able to breathe again. 2 days later, I received a text from Olivia asking to meet. Against Vanessa's advice and my better judgment, I agreed. Not for reconciliation, but for closure. We met at a park midway between our cities, sitting on opposite ends of a bench overlooking a small lake. Ducks paddled lazily across the surface, oblivious to the human drama unfolding nearby. Thank you for coming, Olivia began, her voice small. She looked different, her usual polished appearance replaced by simple jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair pulled back without styling. I said nothing. I waited for whatever she thought would make this situation better. I know you probably hate me, she continued when it became clear I wasn't going to speak first. I hate myself most days, what I did, what we did. It's unforgivable. Then why are we here? I finally asked. Because you're my sister, my only sister, and I need you to know that hurting you was never what I wanted. I laughed, a harsh sound that startled a nearby duck into flight. That's the problem with you, Liv. You never think about consequences. You do what feels good in the moment and expect everyone else to deal with the fallout. She flinched but didn't deny it. I've been seeing a therapist. She says I have boundary issues and seek validation in unhealthy ways. Did you need a therapist to tell you that sleeping with your sister's husband is crossing a boundary? I know how it sounds, she said, tears welling in her eyes. I'm not trying to excuse what I did, but I've spent my whole life feeling like I was living in your shadow. You were always the responsible one, the smart one, the one with the perfect life. So you slept with James too. What? Level the playing field. No, I don't know, she admitted, wiping tears with her sleeve. Maybe part of me wanted something that was yours. Maybe I was jealous of your relationship, your stability. James made me feel special and noticed. Things I've always craved, but never seemed to find in my relationships. I studied my sister, seeing for the first time the deep insecurity behind her carefree facade. It didn't excuse her actions, nothing could, but it helped me understand them. I'm not perfect, Olivia. My life wasn't perfect. You only saw what I showed to the world. I know that now, she said quietly. I also know I've lost the most important relationship in my life, my relationship with you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to hear how sorry I am. We sat in silence for several minutes, watching the ducks, each lost in our thoughts. What happens now? She finally asked. I don't know, I admitted. I can't imagine ever trusting you again, or having you in my life the way we were before. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I understand. As I stood to leave, I found myself saying something I hadn't planned. I may never forgive you for what you did, but I do hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, live. Whatever will make you happy enough that you don't need to take from others. Walking away from my sister that day was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Harder, in some ways, than walking away from James. Sisters are supposed to be forever. The betrayal of that bond felt like losing a limb, phantom pain, where something vital used to be. 6 months later, I was settling into a new normal. The divorce was finalized with surprising efficiency, thanks to James not contesting anything. I had moved to Nashville permanently, finding a job at a physical therapy practice that specialized in pediatric care. The irony of working with children when my dreams of motherhood had been so thoroughly derailed wasn't lost on me, but the work gave me purpose. My parents continued their campaign for family reconciliation, unable to accept that some broken things can't be repaired. I maintained polite but distant contact with them, our conversations carefully avoiding mention of Olivia or James. I was having lunch with Vanessa when my phone buzzed with a text from Olivia, the first direct contact since our meeting at the park. "There's something you should know. James and I broke up. It wasn't right, not just because of how it started, but because we were together for the wrong reasons. I'm moving to Colorado next month. I want you to hear it from me before Mom tells you." I stared at the message, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Not satisfaction, exactly, but a grim confirmation that relationships built on betrayal rarely stand the test of time. "Are you okay?" Vanessa asked, noticing my expression. "Yeah," I said, putting my phone away. "Olivia is letting me know she and James are done. She's moving to Colorado." "Karma," Vanessa declared with a decisive nod. "Are you sad, happy, indifferent?" I considered the question carefully. I think I'm just relieved that the chapter is truly over. Relieved I don't have to imagine them building a life together from the ruins of mine. That evening, alone in my new apartment, I found myself looking at old family photos. Olivia and I as children, arms around each other, gap-toothed grins wide. The two of us, as teenagers, rolled our eyes at our parents' insistence on formal Christmas portraits. My wedding day, with Olivia standing beside me as maid of honor, both of us radiant with happiness. I traced our faces in that last photo, wondering how we had gone from that moment of perfect unity to where we were now. The betrayal still hurt, a dull ache that flared occasionally into sharp pain, but the white-hot rage had cooled. In its place was something more complicated, sadness for what was lost, acceptance that it could never be recovered, and the first tentative steps toward a future I hadn't planned. 2 years after discovering my husband's and sister's affair, I found myself back in our hometown for my father's retirement party. It would be the first time I'd see Olivia in person since the park. She'd come back from Colorado for the occasion, and we'd both promised our parents we would be civil. The party was at my parents' country club, a place filled with childhood memories of swimming lessons and awkward teen dances. I arrived intentionally late, hoping to slip in unnoticed, but my mother spotted me immediately. "Maya, you made it," she hurried over, pulling me into a perfumed embrace. "You look wonderful, darling. Doesn't she look wonderful, Richard?" she added, drawing my father into our circle. "Beautiful as always," my father agreed, kissing my cheek. "Thank you for coming. It means a lot." I smiled genuinely, realizing I was glad to be there. "I wouldn't miss it, Dad. Congratulations on your retirement." My mother's eyes darted nervously around the room. "Olivia's by the bar. She's very nervous about seeing you." "Mom," I sighed, "we're both adults. We can be in the same room without causing a scene." I know. It's been so long, and we're finally having a family event without tension." I refrained from pointing out that any tension was the natural consequence of actions taken by others. Instead, I simply said, "I will go say hello." Crossing the room felt like walking through molasses, each step requiring deliberate effort. Olivia saw me coming, her eyes widening slightly as she set down her drink. "Maya," she said, her voice catching, "you look amazing." "Thanks," I replied, accepting the compliment without returning it. "How's Colorado?" Good. I'm teaching art at an elementary school. The kids are wonderful." I nodded, searching for the hatred I'd nursed for so long, surprised to find it muted. "That sounds perfect for you. You always were good with kids." An awkward silence fell between us, 2 years of unsaid words hanging in the air. "I heard about your promotion," she ventured. "Head of pediatric therapy, that's incredible." "Thank you," another pause. "And I saw on Instagram you're seeing someone." She nodded, a small smile appearing. "His name is Daniel. He's a park ranger, completely different from my usual type. It's new but good." I found myself genuinely hoping it worked out for her, not out of any great sisterly affection, but because I wanted her to be happy enough to stay far away from my life. "And you," she asked tentatively, "are you seeing anyone?" "Not really," I admitted. "I've been on a few dates, but nothing serious. I'm focusing on work and building my new life." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Maya, I know this doesn't change anything, but I think about what I did every day. The therapist says I need to forgive myself eventually, but I'm not sure I ever will." I looked at my sister, my only sibling, the person who had once known me better than anyone, and felt the last piece of something harden inside me crack slightly. "I hope you do find peace, Liv. Not because you deserve it, but because holding onto guilt forever doesn't help either of us." Her eyes filled with tears. "Do you think we'll ever be okay again? Not like before. I know that's impossible, but something." I considered her question carefully. "I don't know. I'm not the same person I was before all this happened. That Maya might have found a way back to being your sister. This one is still figuring out who she is and what she wants." She nodded, accepting this ambiguous answer as the closest thing to hope I could offer. As the evening wore on, I found myself observing Olivia from across the room. She laughed with cousins, danced with our father, and helped our mother arrange gifts. She was trying so hard to be the perfect daughter, the life of the party, perhaps to compensate for her absence, perhaps to prove she could still belong. I realized then that we had always been playing these roles, me the responsible achiever, her the charismatic free spirit. Our parents had cast us early, and we'd performed accordingly. Maybe in breaking everything, Olivia had also broken us free from those constraints. It didn't justify what she'd done, but it offered a new perspective on the aftermath. Later, as I prepared to leave, Olivia approached me one last time. "I'm heading back to Colorado tomorrow," she said, "but I'd like to stay in touch if that's okay. Maybe text at first." Part of me wanted to refuse, to maintain the clean break I'd worked so hard to establish. But another part recognized that healing doesn't always look like we expect it to. Sometimes it's messy and complicated and involves people who have hurt us deeply. "I think I could handle occasional texts," I conceded. "No promises beyond that." Her relief was palpable. "Thank you, Maya." As I drove back to my hotel that night, I reflected on the strange journey of the past 2 years. I had lost my husband, my sister, my home, and the future I'd planned so carefully. Yet somehow I wasn't destroyed. Wounded, yes, changed, but also stronger in ways I couldn't have anticipated. Have you ever found strength in places you never thought to look? Sometimes our deepest hurts carve spaces inside us that eventually fill with something unexpected: resilience, wisdom, self-knowledge. If you've experienced the strange alchemy of pain transforming into growth, share your story in the comments. We heal better when we know we're not alone in our journeys. I still don't know what my relationship with Olivia will become. Something new, certainly. The old sisterhood is gone forever. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust anyone again, the way I once trusted her and James. Some betrayals leave permanent marks. What I do know is that I'm no longer defined by what was done to me. The blood I found that day in my kitchen led me down a path of devastating discovery, but also to a woman I might never have become otherwise. Someone who knows her worth, who sets boundaries without apology, and who understands that forgiveness isn't always necessary for healing. Sometimes the family we're born into fails us in unimaginable ways. And sometimes, in that failure, we find the freedom to become who we were always meant to be.